Hi, Graham Roberts here. We're in our 8th tutorial, I believe, on this database series. Here we are looking at the very same model or ERD we saw before in an earlier tutorial. I've just rearranged it so it's more space. Okay, now I've put in cust_id primary key as a note up here. If you have a different product, you may be able to do this much more professionally than I'm doing here. I'm actually using this free tool that I have around to show this. Okay, so we've got the primary key for the customer. I haven't put in the other attributes. We've seen those before. Now, what's the product going to have? It's going to have a product code or a product ID. So I'm going to do much the same for that, and I'll go away and do that, and I'll come back in just a moment. Alright, I'm back now. You might be thinking, well, have a look at this. It should be making sense. We've got a sales ID, shop ID, product ID, customer ID, and these are probably all numbers. So they may be codes with some letters in the real world, like for a product key. But the invoice and the stock entities here, they don't have any keys yet, and it won't surprise you much, I think, that the reason they don't is because they're the link tables. We can see this more clearly if I just redraw them. If you look, this is between the invoice and the sales. We created it as a go-between, as it were, to stop the many-to-many relationship. We made one of these, didn't we, to link between there and there. So really, we can say the invoice is special. It's a link table. Now, as a link table, it's going to have link keys. That's what they're for. So, what would be the keys? You might like to stop this now and have a guess. Well, the invoice or sales details entity is linking the products and the sales. So, what you'd expect to be in here are the sales ID and the product ID, and that's what you do have. So let's write those in. Now I've put them in as product ID and sales ID. If a sale is made, then the number of that sale, say it's the third sale on the day, then it will go, a 3 will go into the invoice or sales detail table 3. Now, what did it sell? What did it sell? Well, let's say it sold, the shop sold something, a product with an ID of 99. Well, in order to find out what the sale was about and what the product was about, it needs to be able to look up those tables. That is, the invoice table needs to be able to look up the sales table and needs to look up the products table. So it will have in there, in a particular instance or record or tuple, it will have in the invoice, it will have 399. Alright, let's see if you can do this stock. Pause the tape and recording and see if you can do that one. Do you get it right? Well, I'm saying that since the stock is linking the products and the shops, it will need to have the shop ID and the product ID. So if you're looking for a particular stock, let's say you're looking for the stock of stock type 90, code 99, you'll want to know in which shop. If there's 100 shops and it's in the 15th shop, it'd be 9915 that goes into that stock tuple or row or record, however you want to call it, that's in the database. These link keys, they're needed in order to link the tables. Remember where these tables came from. It's important we know this and remember this. The tables came about, that is the stock table and the invoice table. They came about to be designed in our ERD because we had to break up the many-to-many relationships between products and sales and between shops and products. We had to break it up because there's no way of implementing a database with M-to-N relationships. So once we had created those two new entities with their new relationships, we also had to have keys for them to be able to link the tables effectively in a application which we call a database. The lookups in the database, of course, done by a query language, normally called SQL or structured query language, and this is, of course, many different varieties of that. But what they all do is use these link keys to look up, manipulate, recover data from the tables. And what we've actually built here with this ERD is a relational database design, because as you can see, the entities are all linked via relationships, and we have the cardinality of whether it's one-to-many or many-to-one, which is absolutely crucial to know if it's going to be able to work at all. And what we really want is one-to-manys. It turns out you can have a one-to-one, but they're not very useful. If you have a one-to-one relationship with two entities, basically the data is in both entities, so there's not much really to design normally there. Okay, so what's next, do you think? Well, before we go in this tutorial finish, I really want to look at foreign keys. Okay, we've got some foreign keys, but they're kind of special, aren't they? They're primary keys. They're part of a component primary key, these foreign keys that we have in the linked tables. So what we want to do is look at some foreign keys. That's primary keys outside of their own table. Where do they appear here? Well, one place that we know they appear is in the sales table or entity. What would you have in there? Well, obviously you've got the sales ID or this sale number. What else would you have in there? And I'm looking for 3 foreign keys. So if you'd like to pause the recording and see if you can anticipate 1, 2 or 3 of those foreign keys that should be in sales. Okay, right, well, did you get them? There's customer ID. Every sale is going to have a customer, so the customer ID must be recorded surely. There we are, foreign key, because it's ID, primary key rather, in its own table of customer. And a sale will be at a shop, so we need to know the shop ID. Why? Well, because if you look, there is a relationship between the customer and the sales, and it's via the cust ID, although in this case it's a foreign key, and between the sales and the shops, and in this case it's a shop ID acting, the primary key acting in here, recorded as a foreign key. Now I said there could be 3, or there are 3 in fact. Where's the third one? Well, there isn't a third one obviously here at the moment, but remember we had vendor or sales staff earlier. We had them. Let's just add that entity. Let's have vendor in there. If we had a vendor, that is someone who sold to the customer, they'd have a relationship with sales. Vendor would have an ID, and so the vendor ID would have to be down here too as a foreign key. In fact, anything that links, any entity that links with this entity of sales has to have a key that it normally has as a primary key stored in this entity or table as a foreign key. So I've just invented that. I'm going to take away, but anything we add later on that links to any of these tables, when we say, oh, we forgot so and so, and we put them in, they have a key, a primary key, and that primary key is going to go in as a foreign key into the table which we've just linked them to. Now if you've got that third one, you're a genius. Well done. Now in the next tutorial we're going to be looking at putting You might say the flesh on the bones. This design's all very well, but when we make this database and we have these keys, we're going to have some data that attaches to them. For example, we need to say that the customer ID is an integer. How do we do that? And a whole number. What do you mean? How do we do that? How do we store, for example, the name of a customer? As what? Well, text, string, probably things like that come to your mind. Well, I'm going to discuss what we could give them as types in the next tutorial.